So, here we are, right here, right now. Now that I've talked about the first two Toy Story films, let's talk about the third, and what a lot of people should believe, final film in the Toy Story trilogy, Toy Story 3. So Toy Story 3 takes place many years after Toy Story 2, where the toys are now realising that Andy is a full-grown teenager, and Andy is questioning what to do with his toys now that he's going off to college. And there's a bit of debate between the toys that are wondering whether or not they want to hold on to Andy, if Andy is willing to hold on to the toys. However, through a bit of miscommunication and a misunderstanding, Andy decides to take Woody off to college and put the rest of his toys in the attic, including Buzz, Jessie, Rex, the aliens, all the others. However, Andy's mum accidentally mistakes the bag that the toys are in for trash, and the toys are thrown out on the curb. They manage to escape, but think that Andy doesn't want them anymore. So they decide to get a new life in order by shipping themselves off to Sunnyside Daycare, a very mysterious place where children are playing with toys and all that stuff. Woody unfortunately does not agree with the toys' decision because they don't believe Woody saying that Andy was putting them in the attic. However, while Woody stays out of Sunnyside and ends up being picked up by a little girl named Bonnie who brings him home, the other toys realise that there's a dark side to Sunnyside Daycare because they're being put in a room filled with nasty and wild kids that are not the appropriate age to be playing with them. And it turns out that an evil strawberry-smelling bear named Lotso is ruling Sunnyside like a prison, and he locks up all of Andy's toys to make sure they can't escape Sunnyside. So now, Woody, finding out about this, must break back into Sunnyside and help his friends escape before Andy decides what he's going to do before he goes off to college. Now this film is definitely the movie that a lot of people have come to realise is the most impactful, darkest, and most conclusive Toy Story film out of the bunch, especially those who say that this should have been the final film in the Toy Story franchise. And I have definitely known this movie for a long time. I went to go see it back in 2010 in cinemas when I was a toddler. Man, 2010, 16 years ago. And then I had like this early DVD copy of the film sent to me in the post, and I ended up watching that. And then I've known Toy Story 3 for many years, and I even gave it a rewatch many years ago and actually said that yes, it was my favourite Toy Story movie and my favourite Pixar movie. However, after rewatching Toy Story for this video, do I still have the same amazement that is being brought to the screen as I did the many other times I saw Toy Story 3? Yes. Yes, I did. I will say, it's not my favourite Toy Story movie. I still prefer Toy Story 2 a little bit over. But it is my second favourite. I love Toy Story 3. I've watched it twice for this video, just to get more of a reaction, see if I really do think it's my second favourite. And I can happily say that it is. I think that this is a well done, well constructed, well developed, and very satisfying conclusion to the original Toy Story trilogy. First of all, this is definitely the most evolved out of the first three movies in terms of animation, mainly because the animation at that time was happening around the same timeline as films like Up and Ratatouille and Cars 2, which I know a lot of people don't like. But the animation definitely shows how evolved Pixar had become during the first 15 years of their career. The characters look like real animated characters, all of the human characters are just as even more human than ever, and the facial expressions from the characters really have come into their own after many years. And I love that the film still captures the same kind of like touches to detail when it comes to how the characters move. When it comes to like their comedic animation, which there are definitely moments where I feel like the slapstick comedy moments are more eccentric this time. The characters are constantly moving in many scenes during the slapstick moments more. But unlike films like the Hotel Transylvania movies or Smurfs: The Lost Village or The Guardian, Garfield movie, the animated slapstick moments don't get on my nerves or make the characters move for the sake of making them move. It actually plays a part in like seeing how the toys are dealing with their surroundings and how they bounce off of each other, which is hilarious. I mean, when you see Spanish Buzz, you can tell that they really took a lot of time inspiring themselves through like salsa dancing, many dances in Spain, to really capture the eccentric and hilarious movements of Spanish Buzz. But the film also uses the animation to get touches upon characters during emotional moments, where you see their sad faces, some of their hesitational movements now and again, shows how much more desperate and more worried the characters are after 3 movies. The colours are also majorly evolved as well. Yes, there is still that colourful charm of seeing alive toys and many primary colours now and again, but the film also uses certain colours to capture the gripping and intense atmosphere when it comes to some of the most intense moments. Whether it's orange for the conclusion, whether it's dark lighting for some of the intense moments, or the green, or the like green polluted atmosphere when it comes to the inside of the Sunnyside daycare, when you find out how much of a dark side it actually has. And since I've been talking about that, let's talk about the story. This has got to be the most emotional, like physically emotional story in the entire Toy Story franchise at that point in time. Let me tell you, they go to some dark places in the story, in terms of like where the characters are in certain locations and how their emotional state is after so many years. They do go to some dark places. The film shows that the characters are still struggling to deal with how they're actually facing the inevitable of possibly being forgotten by Andy or being ignored by Andy and not being worth used. That's why they're in a desperate spot. And when you see the characters arguing with each other during the first act of the movie, it's not out of spite against each other. It's because they're being put into some desperate situations, calling for desperate measures, in order to make sure that they still feel relevant and used. Because they feel that if they don't, then what purpose do they have? In the second film, it was dealing with the problem of thinking about what could happen in the inevitable times and how the future holds. In this film, they pretty much are facing the inevitable right here, right now. Now that Andy is older and he's still wondering himself if he wants to hold on to his toys and think about what to do with them. But the toys don't know that, so they're constantly dealing with like the loss of identity and loss of purpose. But they're still trying to work it out together as a tight-knit family. But again, it's not just the emotional state where they go to dark places, it's the atmosphere where they go to dark places. Because some of these moments are absolutely intense and creepy. Like, this is definitely the darkest Toy Story movie out of the bunch. And in my opinion, I love that the film actually tries to go that deep with it and that dark. Because it shows that they're comfortable with raising the stakes for more older audiences while trusting the younger audiences to keep attention and keep confident during these dark stories. I mean, some of the best animated films deal with dark topics. I mean, I haven't seen some of them yet, but The Secret of Nim was one of those movies, and I guess some of the Studio Ghibli film deals with those topics, and many other Disney and Pixar films deal with that topic too. So I like that this film manages to have confidence of raising the stakes a bit. But that's not to say that the film is lacking in humour because of its deep story. It still has many laugh-out-loud hilarious moments, and of course that witty dialogue that we always know in Toy Story for having. Sure, it's not as consistently funny as it was in Toy Story 2, and I do think that it's mainly the emotional themes of this movie that outweigh the comedy here, but they still managed to put a good amount of comedy in to ease the dark moments now and again. So I feel like they still kept that balance there. The characters are absolutely phenomenal. I think that this is some of the best development that we've seen some of these characters throughout the trilogy. Just seeing some of the characters that have that hilariousness from the first film, suddenly dealing with these dangerous situations 3 movies later, showing how far they've come as a group, is quite interesting, yet very exciting at the same time. Woody is dealing with the big, inevitable of Andy growing up that he was expecting from the second movie. Because in the second movie, he was wondering what the future might hold if Andy does grow up. And now he's dealing with that now. But because he's had that question in the second film, he's now fully prepared to make sure that his community stays together to help Andy's needs whenever he does need them. But you can still tell that that weight of letting Andy down and losing him is still present with him throughout the whole movie. Especially in the beginning when he's struggling to keep the group active and engaged with their situation, yet still keeping them feel like they are going to be alright. Especially considering that he says that they've lost many of their toy friends along the way, including Bo Peep. He says that, yeah, Bo. It's a tiny little moment, but you can tell that that affected Woody in a majorly dramatic way, considering how much he loved Bo in the first two movies. So you feel like so much sympathy for him in that scene because he's lost a loved one and he wants to make sure none of the other toys go through that experience as well. Like, he wouldn't want anything to happen if Buzz ended up losing Jessie, which we'll get to that later. But I love his growth throughout the film, that when he does eventually find out what's going on with Sunnyside, he learns about the consequences for leaving his group and learning that he needs to stick with his group in order to help them out of this situation, which leads to him showing incredible leadership when he tries to get them out. And Tom Hanks gave an amazing vocal performance still, showing his dramatic chops, but also still his comedic chops. Buzz is also a very level-headed character in this film, because while the other toys, including Woody, are like having this angriness and struggling with their mental state, Buzz seems to be the one that, in my opinion, is the most peacemaking character out of the group. I appreciate that he's trying to see both sides of the argument. He understands Woody's side, and he understands his group's side. But considering that the group is broader and larger, he tries to see it more from their point of view, because he has seen some evidence that maybe Andy might be growing out of his age to play with them anymore. But he still tries to be supportive of Woody's ideas as well, even to the point of being refused a handshake by Woody, which just is heartbreaking. I love that it shows how much Buzz has come in the first three movies. And also, some of the stuff that they put him through in this film, without giving too much away, is both worrying, but then when something hilarious happens, especially when Spanish Buzz comes into the play, I won't give away what it is, it's absolutely hilarious. But I think Buzz is definitely at his second best in this Toy Story feature. But one of the characters that I absolutely loved that has evolved since a previous installment is Jessie. Yes, Jessie does have some moments where she's kind of arguing with Woody and she's kind of argumentative in the group, but once she learns what's really happening and she gets put into a dangerous situation, she learns about the emotional impact that Woody and Andy have had on her life, knowing that no matter what her desires are, she would never want anything to happen to them. And it leads to some dramatic scenes, and I love how much she's supportive when she does get her confidence now and again, and how supportive she is of Bullseye being a good owner to probably a pet that Bullseye might be to Jessie. And my goodness, some of the stuff they put Jessie through, I feel heartbroken. But like I said earlier about Buzz and Jessie, they do have a blooming romance throughout the film. Jessie can tell that Buzz has a bit of a soft spot for Jessie and kind of a little crush on her, but he's struggling to let it out. I mean, it's adorable to see the level-headed Buzz getting embarrassed and nervous whenever he sees his crush. Will he find his confidence to express his affections to her? Will they be able to come together and potentially create a blooming romance? Well, you'll have to watch the film in order to find out for yourself. Then we have the main villain of the movie, Lotso Hugging Bear, played by Ned Beatty. Lotso is maybe my second favourite Toy Story villain, because this character, oh my god, he is such a nasty piece of work. I mean, he is such a douchebag when you find out who he is. But the thing is that when he's first introduced, he puts on this kind grandpa act to make him come across as a genuinely loving bear, to show the toys that he means well and has a good wisdom side. So when it's revealed that he's actually more sinister than they expected, you buy that you are surprised, but also buy that he's used this act to trick many toys into his daycare. And when he does become this tyrant, you just feel so aggravated by him. He's so cocky and so messed up. You just want to see this butt hat get his comeuppance. The film also gives him a backstory, a tragic backstory of that. But I love that the film does present the backstory, but I love that the film gives us the choice that we're not supposed to sympathise with him, because we can't after everything he's done and everything he's possibly about to do. They present this backstory to expose the dark side of what the toys are worrying about, especially considering that he presents the kind of person that, like Jamboree said, he represents the kind of person that Woody or Jessie could have become during their moments in the first two films, and showing how any of these toys could end up like Lotso. I love that the film does present this kind of backstory to help us like see the point of view of like what would happen if the other toys went through this kind of stuff. But again, you're not meant to sympathise with him because he's not a nice toy. And the actor did a fantastic job both playing up the nice guy act, but then really sinking his teeth into the role when he has to show Lotso's dark side. And I gotta tell you, I don't know why I didn't talk about this before, but we can't talk about the film without discussing two of some of the most steal-stealing characters in the entire movie. Barbie and Ken, voiced by Jodie Benson and Michael Keaton. These characters are hilarious. Like, the moment they meet up, they instantly think that they're in love, because they're pretty much part of like the Barbie Ken brand. But there is a bit of tension once there's some sort of secret that Ken is hiding. But I gotta say, the stuff with Ken is absolutely hilarious because he represents the kind of person that wants to show that he has masculinity, but because of his style and because of the way he likes his clothes and the way he likes to try them on and show off his kind of like man-boyish charm, he gets criticised for something that isn't necessarily stereotyped for being in the male toy area. Especially this amazing scene where he gets criticised for being a girl toy and he's like, I'm not a girl toy! I'm not! Why do you guys keep saying that? Like, it's that kind of Toy Story dialogue that's like modern dialogue that I absolutely loved, and it was just hilarious. And the stuff with Barbie and Ken is like some of the most hilarious high points of the movie. But do you want to know another character that I'm surprised had as much development as he did? Andy. This is definitely the most development that Andy has ever been given, because come think of it, he kind of feels like a full-fledged character here. He's now 17 years old, and he's making decisions in his life in the future, especially considering that some elements of his childhood are still in his room, specifically his toys. So he's trying to wonder, what should I do with the toys? Should I donate them? Should I keep them? What should I do? And for me, I felt like that's one of the reasons why a lot of people found the first three Toy Story movies to be impactful, because it's like they grew up with the movies the same way that Andy grew up in his life. So it's just like, how do you let go of like the times that you've had with the toys? I like that the film actually has a connection between its own story and the audience's reactions. And seeing some of the elements and some of the things that we see Andy go through throughout the film, in the very few scenes we see him in, can resonate with a lot of people that grew up since the first Toy Story movie came out. And it all leads to some amazingly emotional moments with Andy. And it's funny that, considering that this film came out 11 years after Toy Story 2, the actor for Andy who voiced him when he was a child came back to play him as a teenager, or in his case, an adult probably. And it's great that they managed to keep the same amount of team from the previous films. It makes us feel like, oh, we've seen how far they've come since the first movie. And I think that the actor who voiced Andy still did a fantastic job since he's grown up. And I have to say, guys, the last third of this movie was perfect. I think just about perfect. It had some of the most amazing scenes, a couple of hilarious moments, the most emotional scenes, and intense and thrilling climax. I mean, the climax is definitely the best climax of any Toy Story film, and it goes way more extreme for just being a movie about talking toys. I mean, watching it now, I always get goosebumps whenever this climax comes out, and it has like amazing visual demonstrations of sticking together. And, well, I guess I'll address the elephant in the room. Yes, I do think the ending of the movie should have been the ending of the franchise, like the end of Toy Story. The final scene in this film really is a full reflection of those who grow up since the first Toy Story movie came out, and seeing how the ending kind of takes a bit of closure to that era and kind of going into a new era. I think that they ended the original trilogy the best way that they could, and I think that this ending was the best kind of ending you could have had. I won't give it away here, even though a lot of people probably know what it is, but again, without spoiling anything, I'm not going to spoil anything, this is the ending that a lot of people still consider to be the definitive ending of like the main Toy Story films. Whatever Toy Story 4 and Toy Story 5 are, they're a different kind of trilogy. They're a different franchise for a new generation. This is the ending of the main Toy Story. And I think it was a brilliant and effective way to close off the story. And rewatching the whole trilogy now, it almost got me choked up a little bit in a few scenes. It was beautiful. And some people might think that this ending is a bit corny, but I think it really demonstrates that anybody can be different and anybody can be nostalgic. They have different ways of growing up. Again, I won't give away how that's presented in the ending, but you'll have to see it for yourselves. But I thought the ending was fantastic, and the whole movie was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But I do have to address a few elements where I say that although I love this film, I do have a couple issues with it. And again, it's just issues that are looking back on the movie, because there's no way I can hate this film. I loved it. But there are a few problems that kind of derail it down from Toy Story 2 a bit. Much like the first Toy Story film, the film can suffer through a bit of slow scenes now and again that does disrupt a bit of the flow of pacing, and kind of a lower, like more held back version of like having adventure. Because the thing that the second Toy Story did is that they balanced the dramaticness, the comediness, and the adventure element very well, with the characters going to multiple locations and seeing different climates and seeing different ways that they bounce off of them is fantastic. But here, in this film, there definitely is some adventure there, but we're pretty much stuck in the Sunnyside daycare through nearly the entire movie. And I felt like there are a few moments where it did take them a little bit too long to try and find a way to get out. Do they get out? Well, you'll have to see the film and find out. That rhymes. No, it doesn't. It's just using the same word, out. But I felt like that they were there for a bit too long. But I think that like serves the purpose of the story, because it also feels like a good sense of like hopelessness in this movie, to the point where you do want the toys to succeed. But all hope is lost with them being stuck in this daycare throughout the entire movie. But I felt like there are some slow scenes and some planning moments and action scenes that do go on a little bit too long during this time period. Now, because I've been mostly more intrigued with a lot of the dramatic elements and sincerity it goes through, I didn't feel like the comedy in this film was as strong as like some of the other Toy Story movies. At least not as the second one. Again, but I like that the film does go for a more dramatic take. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I don't mind Shrek Forever After being more of a drama, because they're trying to tell a serious story. So I didn't mind that there wasn't that many funny moments. It's just that when they do try to add funny moments in the movie, they are mostly good, but some of them aren't really that funny and nothing special, that's all. I do wish there could have been a bit more snappy wittiness to the comedy whenever it does get a chance to shine. And I will also say that while many elements of the story is some of the best stuff we've seen in the Toy Story franchise, I think part of the reasons for that is that they do try to take inspiration with a little bit of recycling of some plots from the second movie, with the toys dealing with the inevitable and trying to deal with the fear of being forgotten, and a villain being a kind of a secret villain, although Lotso in this movie isn't as much of a secret villain as the one from the second movie, and having a dramatic backstory that affects their way of thinking in life just so they could have better lives as toys. I did feel like that they do kind of reuse a few tactics from the second movie. Also, because of the way that the dramatic weight is in this movie, I wasn't thinking too much about like the many morals that this film wants to show, which are excellent by the way, but I didn't feel like it was as effortlessly to dive into as the second movie. I mean, in the second film, many moments of dialogue have no music at all. It's just real dialogue of, someday he's gonna grow up. I might not see them. Whereas this film, every dialogue with that, it has a bit of dramatic music. But again, it's not really the music's problem, but I didn't feel like a lot of the stuff that they reused from the second film was as strong in the third film because it, again, was kind of reused. But overall guys, despite the film having a few slow scenes and being reusing ideas, those ideas and scenes are still amazing. I could watch those moments again and again and see that they're the best stuff of the Toy Story franchise. And overall, this Toy Story 3 was a very satisfying finish to an amazing animated trilogy. It honestly will never make me feel any less, because this film has some of the most emotional scenes, some of the best character moments, some of the best action, some of the best thought-provoking stuff, and the climax and ending was so satisfying and so thrilling that I honestly still can't wonder why they made more sequels after that instead of spin-offs, when this could have been the definitive, like, in terms of like the main Toy Story franchise, this definitely could have been the ending. I thought it was fantastic. So overall guys, I'm going to give Toy Story 3 a 4.5 out of 5. It's a heck of a movie. I will say I still liked Toy Story 2 a little bit more, but that doesn't derail the awesomeness of Toy Story 3 one bit, as it wrapped up the original franchise very well, to give us quite possibly one of the most special, nostalgic, and heart-wrenching family movie trilogies of all time. Yeah, and then, you know, this happened. Well, that's me done talking about the first 3 Toy Story films that I didn't get to review. But if there are people out there that want to know my quick updated thoughts on Toy Story 4, I'll talk about it really quick. Back in the day, I was defending this movie when I was younger, when I first saw it in cinemas and then saw it in 2019. But I think that was probably nostalgic beta stuff and just kind of my old childhood reactions, because a rewatch of it for this video to quickly give my updated thoughts made me realise that this actually isn't that great of a movie. I wasn't a biggest fan of this one. My biggest problem with it is that despite the fact that Woody as a character himself is still pretty good, he is way too mistreated by the other characters in this movie. Whether it is Bonnie, kind of not acknowledging his existence many of the times, which honestly is kind of like a out of character thing because of how much she loved him in the third Toy Story film, to how people always question his morals and his loyalty to kids and his job like taking care of them and taking care of other toys. Like, I don't understand how when he's trying to save Forky from Gabby Gabby, people are like, why are you doing this? Like, it just shows you how struggling you are with your relationship with Bonnie. And I'm just like, there's a toy in danger. They could be getting hurt. There's a cat right around him that could scratch that toy. Woody's trying to save him. What do you mean this is just him, like, kind of reflecting his problems out onto the world? Like, I didn't get some of the writing here. While it is cool to see Bo Peep back, and it does have a bit of emotion by the end of the movie, she also has a bit of a whiny, strict side to her. But it's understandable, she's been out of Woody's life for 9 years. 9 years, that's a very long time. But I felt like that she was a bit too naggy and harsh towards Woody's mission, and also I didn't understand why she is like against him trying to rescue Forky. Forky's life could be in danger. And also, after watching Young Sheldon, it is kind of hard to unhear modern day Annie Potts as the voice of Bo Peep, when nowadays she just sounds like me more, especially with her sassy attitude. Buzz, they like flanderized him as a character. They turned him into kind of an idiot in this movie all these years, and he doesn't know what a conscience is, so he has to like press his like box like, there's a secret mission in Childhood Space, let's go! And thinking that's his inner voice, and he does what it says, and he takes it literally. That's not the Buzz from the previous movies. I feel like the Buzz from the previous movies would get a chance to know what this is. So him going back to using his boxes again, like how he was in the first film, it worked for the first film, but it doesn't work for the fourth film. Your character needs to evolve. I don't get what the writers were doing when they were trying to Flanderize him. Gabby's fine, but she does kind of get what she wants at the end and faces no consequences. But her final scene, I will say, did actually kind of make me choke up a little bit. And the ending of the movie, it's hard to say because yes, it is bad, like, spoiler alert, Woody leaving the main group. It is kind of bad and it kind of goes against the moral lesson that he was learning in the last couple movies about accepting the inevitable of kids growing up and not needing him probably and having friends to go by. So him leaving the group just because Bonnie isn't handling him well is kind of going against that development. But at the same time, it is emotional. I like that Woody is helping lost toys in the end, while being a lost toy himself. That shows that he cares about toys. And also, we know that there's a fifth one, so we know that that's not the end of Woody. Anyway, I just thought it was okay. But honestly, guys, I was not the biggest fan of this one. They Flanderized characters, they mistreated Woody, the comedy isn't that great, it's not that funny to justify it, and I don't understand why it had to be Toy Story 4 and not just Woody the movie, because if it was a spin-off focusing on Woody adventures, excluding the other characters and just focusing on him and Bo Peep, it might have turned out better, because the other characters just feel sidelined, which I'm glad that they're hoping to make up for in the next film with Jessie. But overall, guys, updatedly, this film is a 2.5 out of 5. It's definitely the weakest out of the Toy Story main movies. But anyway, guys, that is it. That is my review of my updated thoughts on the Toy Story movies before Toy Story 5. I hope Toy Story 5 is better than Toy Story 4, but I'm guaranteed that it's probably not going to beat the original trilogy. That trilogy was such a treat to look back on, and it's great to know that that franchise still holds a huge place in the heart, especially with its emotional themes, yet witty comedy. That made us realise that we grew up with this franchise, just like how the kids in those films grew up with their toys. So it's a great movie franchise to look back on, and I hope that it does continue to thrive in the future. But anyway, guys, what do you think of the Toy Story films? Do you love them? Do you hate them? And what is your favourite out of the Toy Story movies? Let me know in the comment section below. More videos to come, and... Quack, quack, quack. Uh-oh. Peace out, man.